On Monday, October 4th, the equivalent of 440 Olympic-sized swimming pools of toxic sludge seeped out of a factory here in Hungary. We've come to see the environmental impact it is having and will have. Hello and welcome to Devitcher and to this week's show. The toxic tide from the alumina plant is said to have killed all the fish in the nearby Marsal River and left acres of agricultural land in jeopardy. We'll be speaking to locals and experts to find out what the future here holds before looking at what exactly the waste was made up of. Was it in line with the trade norms, and could this accident have been avoided? Finally, to France, where fields of red mud, the same byproduct of alumina production, is left out in the open or pumped into the Mediterranean Sea in all legality. How can this be? Well, stick with us and you'll find out in just a few minutes. The stream beside me looks like a chocolate river, but its colour comes from a red sludge that burst through a waste reservoir of an alumina plant not far away. The town of Devitcher was one of the worst hit in the region. Environmentalists say that the levels of arsenic and mercury here are way above the norm. Locals are doing all they can to try and neutralise the soil, but parts of this town will have to be torn down. Mopping up after the brown tsunami that covered the town. Locals still find it hard to believe what has happened. The mud gushed over this garden in a matter of minutes, destroying years of cultivation. The vegetables, the animals were all taken up by the toxic tide. Today, Somlovari and his wife shovel on plaster. It's the only advice they've been given on how to clear up the mess. But they're not overly confident of the plaster's power.
I'm told that the plaster will neutralise the soil, or so they say.
For the time being, little is known about the toxic content of the soil. Environmentalists talk of mercury and even arsenic, but no official test results have been made public.
The problem lies with the owners of the factory, the rich. We've had so many false alarms. I don't know what's going on anymore. I want to move away from here.
Not far from Somlovari, there is one team testing the air quality. Out of sight, hidden behind a school, a truck and some filters to quantify some of the dangers of what people here are breathing.
We're measuring air pollution. We'll catch fine particles of less than 10 micrometers in a filter that'll let us determine their concentration.
The concentration, but not the toxicity. And this man confides, the official tests are less than well organised.
These tests are mostly to calm people down. Overall, it's very badly coordinated.
The men testing the air have been deployed by the University of Veszprém, about half an hour drive away. It's here that a large number of the engineers who work at the MAL factory studied. The director agrees to meet us, but he says he can't tell us more about the levels of toxicity as the tests remain confidential.
The surface water don't contain heavy metal contamination, and also there is no significant contamination in the soil. The problem is that this powder contains caustic materials, and if this material gets into the lung, it reacts with the water or with the moisture, and can result in very severe burning,
Shovels and spades clear away the mud that they can, but experts say the topsoil of all the affected areas should be removed. Authorities have so far collected 60 homes that will have to be torn down. These 60 families will be rehoused, but others here will have to find some way of living once again on this land. Well, it'll take some time then before the full environmental damage of this spill is known. Behind me, a dam is being put in place to protect the villages and town from any secondary accident. But the question here on everyone's lips is, could this accident have been avoided? Protective rings around the waste reservoirs of MAL-RT are being reinforced. A dam of 600 metres is being built, the accident proving that a stronger defence system is needed.
As you can see, these dikes are made of soil at the moment. So what we are doing now, we are making, stronger the dikes with dolomite.
The government is confident the dam will make the land around the factory safe and prevent scenes like this in the future. Barely has it been built, but Malorty is up and running again. It's the principal employer of the region and is vital for the economy of the local community. A source of revenue, but now also of pain and fear.
No comment.
Malorty insists the disaster was a natural catastrophe, but engineers at the Technology University of Budapest beg to differ, saying they spotted a problem years ago.
The biggest issue is soil consistency. The factory was built on a swamp. The images make it clearer. The blue here is wet land where reservoir number 10 was. Water couldn't evaporate from such an environment.
Built on a swamp, the moisture of the environment added to a wetter than average September meant that the waste reservoirs could no longer withhold the pressure, and so the mud, heavy and toxic caustic soda, washed over the countryside, taking at least 8 lives and leaving more than 120 people burned and badly injured. Well, this brown line you see beside me is the height the toxic tide got to as it passed through Devecser. It's roughly 1.80 meters. Well, after looking at the sludge here in Hungary and the accident, we're going to cross now to France, where another factory producing alumina has been pumping its waste mud into the Mediterranean for over 40 years in all legality. It says its waste is not so toxic and is so doing no harm to the environment.
It's a huge open-air reservoir of red mud. Hundreds of tons of residue from France's sole aluminium factory. Its owners say there's no reason for alert. According to them, the mud is not as toxic as the Hungarian sludge.
This residue has been through a cleaning process. We washed most of the caustic soda out of it, so it's not corrosive anymore.
Caustic soda helps extract aluminium oxide. The mud is then cleaned in tanks. In the end, the sludge is theoretically 97% clean.
The difference with Hungary is that we have a thorough washing process. That's because we've been dumping the mud into the sea for years and didn't want to pollute it with sodium hydroxide. And also because we want to keep the caustic soda so we can use it again.
Still, dumping the residue into the Mediterranean may not be completely harmless. The site has thrown millions of tons of mud over the past 40 years.
There's a reason the EU has decided to ban this process starting 2015. It's an old trail in the industry. People think the residue will disappear in the sea, but it doesn't disappear.
This year alone, the Gardon factory has dumped 180,000 tons of sludge into the sea.
Well, that brings us to the end of this special edition of Environment, brought to you from Devecser in Hungary. A big thanks to everyone who worked on the show, notably the man on the other side of the camera, Johan Baudin. Thanks also to our producer, Jung Chim. That's it for this week. See you next time.